we were talking off mic during the break. You had a lot of things to say about Angel Reese, and we were talking also about this Uganda law that I'm going to get into with Kevin Powell later. I was thinking about, this thing that evangelicals don't see in the Bible, or don't, I think this is a Black thing where you say, hate the sin, not the sinner, like, and I'm struggling with that because the sin is so smeared. The sin of racism, the sin of inhumanity is so much a part of the person. It's hard for me to separate them. How do we do that?
Okay, can I be real here? Okay.
Yes, please.
And with my brother and sister and everybody else listening, look, the reality is that we don't have a choice. Think about the shoulders, the people on whose shoulders we stand on. They had to navigate the reality of the sin of racism. I mean, using your words, that act of racism, and then the people that they have to live with who perpetuate the racism against them. Also bearing in mind that not all white people are racist. It's almost as though we learn from generation to generation, from year to year, because remember, it's the same BS, but on a different day. So the racism is the same thing. It kind of evolves in such a way that they make it more palatable for people to go, oh, but that's not so bad. Yeah, but it's still racist. And it gets to such a point, like what happened with Angel Reese, as an example, where someone can go on Twitter and call her a classless SHIT. You and I know that person is being racist. They don't need to use the N-word. They don't need to say anything else. We know that they're being racist. In fact, it's almost like they're desperate to use the N-word, but they don't want to do that. How do we navigate these spaces? It is by the grace of God. Let me not lie, because it is hard. I know for a fact that I would love life to be, I think life would be so much easier if we did not have to deal with all of, these obstacles. Racism is one of them. Think about it. Racism is one of them. It would be great not to have to deal with that nonsense, with that discrimination, or as women, not to have to deal with misogynoir because we live in a patriarchal society. But then we have to learn to navigate this thing. So it then comes down, I think, boils down to a personal choice and a personal decision. I think that there's some things, I mean, I'm much older now, okay? I know I don't look it, but we do try. But now that I'm in my 40s, I'll be honest, I could not give a rat's ass. Let me just put my hand up.
Yes.
I may not have said this in my 20s because I did not have the language. In my 30s, I was still navigating, trying to find myself, give voice to my voice. In my 40s, I'm like, they've not given birth to the person who's going to come and stand between me and what I want to achieve. You see, there's an evolution of person. And I think each of us has to get to a point where you go, no, I'm not going to put up with that anymore. No, it's a no. I'm sorry. I'm going to call it what it is. But I also recognize that we have to pick our battles for our mental health, for our self-care. I mean, how many of these racist battles are we going to fight? Look, you and I know that there's some things that happen in our workplace, on our high streets, on the bus, on the train. Sometimes we just keep quiet and close our eyes. It's not like we're not upset, but we pick our battles.
Shola, I have a question for you. I've been to the UK, as I said many times, and for Black folks in America, whether they're Black American or of Caribbean or they were descent or they were born and raised in Africa, but they came to the States at a certain point, can you talk about what do you feel is similar between the UK and what's different for Black people?
Now, that's an interesting question because my first thought on that is I don't see a great difference. I think that because look, I am British born here in London. I still get told to go back where I came from. Now, for African Americans, and I'm not talking about African Americans that may have come from other places. I'm talking about African Americans that are born and bred in the States, right? Nobody particularly says go back where you came from. I mean, they don't necessarily use those words.
Well, they actually say go back to Africa. They do say
they get specific. Yeah, they do.
They're real specific. Go back to Africa.
Go back to Africa, right? But that is why I'm saying that there is no real difference. And people like to make this whole conundrum of, ooh, racism is worse in the States than it is in the United Kingdom. Utter rubbish. Let the Nigerian in me come through. Utter nonsense.
Right.
Speaking
That's
English.
rubbish.
Come on
I mean,
through.
the reality is that the racism being practiced in the States, I'm sorry, where did it start from? Who brought that racism to the land of America? I'm sorry, the British, the French, the Spanish. It wasn't there. It wasn't there with the Native Americans. I mean, clearly, it was there between the Europeans and the Native Americans because they came in and they did all the terrible things that they did to them. My point is, a lot of the things that we're experiencing now and the evolution from slavery to the colonization of Africans, which I just call slavery 2.0, right? They went from stealing, kidnapping Africans to colonizing the entire country under the guise of, ooh, we need to bring them civilization, we need to bring them commerciality, and we need to bring them Christianity, because it is in the name of the Lord that we spread the good word. And what we do is to colonize these people, steal from them, kill them, take away their culture, and do all these terrible things. You and I know they didn't do it in the name of God, but they used Christianity to do terrible things. So I would say that I do not see a massive difference between being Black in America and being Black in Britain. Our experiences of racism, overt, covert, quite frankly, exist in both places.
As I said to you, Shola, when I was in Liverpool a year ago for a global racism conference, the thing that struck me the most is when I met a Black woman who could have been a Black woman in America who said, my son was killed by some racists here. It was Trayvon Martin, just like in the States. And so what do you feel that, what kind of conversations do we need to be having? Because a lot of times we get isolated. Here's the Black folks in America, here's the Black folks in Canada, the UK, the Black folks in the continent. What do we need to do to have these kind of diasporic conversations, in your opinion?
I think the diaspora conversations are happening, but they're not happening in a joint way. So one hand doesn't know what the other hand is doing. And people are not connected. And here I'm talking about the Black community. And when I say Black, I know that is a word imposed on us. My mother hates me using the word Black because she's like, I didn't spend all that money on your education to call people Black and white. Do they look white to you? I mean, they're different color. Do you look Black? But anyway, I digress. The point is, some of the problems we have in the Black diaspora when it comes to talking about global racism and racism within our different nations is not exerting the power and influence that we could exert if we worked together, i.e., as a union. Now, unfortunately for us, it's the racial gatekeeping Black and brown people that get into positions of power.
Racial gatekeeping. Break that down for folks who may not know what you mean.
Okay. Now, racial gatekeepers, let me talk about Black racial gatekeepers. Black racial gatekeepers are those who uphold white supremacy. They come on board, whether it's in politics, in whatever industry, and all they're doing is using the influence that they have to drive the very circumstances, policies, laws that throw people that look like them under the bus. Therein lies part of our problem. Because I would have thought that as a people, right, whether you're American, whether you're Afro-Caribbean, you're African, British, that we're able to use our skill set, our knowledge, our influence together to shape a better world. Because actually, I think that we create a better world and it will be better for everybody, not just Black people, but white people too. I mean, that was Baldwin right there talking about how it erodes. I think white supremacy erodes the humanity of white people who subscribe to white supremacy.
That's right.
So, but the problem, part of the problem, not the whole problem, part of the problem is those who then get into positions of power or who have influence of some kind. Look at those on the social media, circuit, and the words they use and the way they end up using their influence against the very people that, quite frankly, they should all, I mean, we should all be able to support each other. Now, I can hear people, because people say this to me all the time, but Dr. Shola, we're not a monolith of thought. I know we're not a monolith of thought. Goodness, even my husband doesn't agree with 50% of what I say. I've not divorced him yet. It's not about being a monolith of thought. People go, but Dr. Shola, people are entitled to their own difference of opinion. I'm like, you're entitled to your difference of opinion as long as your difference of opinion does not in any way, shape, form, or manner deny me my humanity. Because when it does, we're not talking opinion then. We're talking about you and I entering the same trouser. Again, let the Nigerian in me come through. The bottom line here is, if I am doing things that will deny somebody else an equal value of life and liberty, and then I am using my influence. So let me give us an example. We have a home secretary here called Shola Braverman, aka Cruella Braverman. Okay, she's a home secretary who is so delighted about getting planes to take migrants and fly them to Rwanda to go dump them there because we can't have them here. She uses divisive language all of the time to authorize migrants that have no choice but to come to this country on small boats because the UK does not create safe and legal routes for them to come. I'm talking about people from
Sounds
Afghanistan.
familiar, Karen. Sounds very, this is America.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Africa, people fleeing war afflicted zones, right?
Yeah.
This is what she's like. And so recently she's been making all kinds of comments. And I said, she's a dangerous woman. And people wanted to understand what I meant. I said, you need to understand what she's doing. She is using her race because she's Asian. She's British Asian. She's using her race to legitimize the very racism that impacts people, Black and brown people, of which she's one. That makes her dangerous.
So we have our Nikki Haley. We got our Ted Cruz's. Exactly. We got our
Candace
Marco
Owens.
Rubios. We got our
yes. And then to
Bobby Jindals.
Exactly. And then to top it off is she's home secretary. Home secretary is the third highest office in the land. And I said, do you understand that I could not care less if her difference of opinion applied to her alone? That's okay. But when her difference of opinion turns into policy in her position as home secretary, hey, please, where's my wrapper? It's time to tie it because something is happening. That's unacceptable. This is the problem. People get into positions of power and they bring their differences or difference of opinion and turn it into policy that what does that do? It vilifies everybody else. Why is she doing that? Why do you need to do that? I understand that, racial gatekeepers, they what they do is they love the benefits they get from their proximity to whiteness. They love all of that. And I'm like, look, I'm happy for you that you've got security, whatever security you have, but hey, you don't need to kill me to keep your security. You don't need to kill me to keep climbing up that ladder. But what you're doing is dehumanizing people like me. I'm sorry, I cannot support that. There's no way on God's earth. I cannot even begin to fathom people who want to defend the indefensible. It makes no sense to me.
That's right.